it.
Well, I hope there's lots of questions.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sure, if you are, and then we have a professor, here, I'm missing this thing. Pardon me.
All right, well, like Dr. Professor Katz just said, yes, I used to work here over at Missouri Valley. Some of you already know who I am. So I've got a little bit of experience teaching. I've got a little bit of experience, working professional sports. I got some experience working with college athletes, high school athletes as well, too, in a lot of different ways. I think what I want to do, just like any good story and any start, I want to kind of tell you guys how everything started for me. Because everybody's got a different way of developing what they've got and a different story on how things went. So, like some of you in this class, because I know some of you, I started out as an athlete as well. I played every sport and any sport that you could possibly think of growing up because my parents didn't want me in the house anymore. When I was young, they said, get outside, don't be inside, go and do something, burn off some energy. So it started off on a whole whim of playing all kinds of different sports. When I was like 2 years old, my parents had me skating out on the ice. They have pictures of all that. So I grew up playing hockey, ice hockey initially. And then as things got along, they tried to put me in different things like softball. They tried to put me in things like volleyball. I ran track, I did cross country, and I played baseball. And what was interesting about baseball more than anything else is because that's the first sport that I actually chose that I wanted to participate in. So I was about 6 or 7 years old, had the opportunity to go and watch the Toronto Blue Jays play. And I said to my dad, I said, hey, listen, I want to do what they're doing. I don't want to play softball. I want to play hockey. I want to do those things, but I want to try that out. So after the game, took me back. We started playing, started throwing to me. I started hitting, fell in love with the game. So that's kind of where I started with baseball itself. And I'll tell you why that's important as we go through the story. So as I'm going through, I'm playing these different sports. Ice hockey's a big thing. I grew up in Canada, for those that don't know. Okay, so that's why ice hockey is a big deal. So I was playing ice hockey, loved that, and in the summer times I was playing baseball. So as I'm going through and I'm playing both sports, I'm getting pretty good at both. And I'm starting to think in my mind. I'm like, hey, listen, what do I want to do with my life after I'm done? Or not after I'm done, but as I'm going. What do I want to do? And I was like, you know what? I watch professional sports every single day. I sit there, I read about it. That's what my thought process is. So I'm going along and I'm thinking this, and I'm like, how am I going to get to that place? Just like all of you, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got to practice. I got to study the game. I got to think about all these different things. But my parents, God bless them, they were thinking about all kinds of different things too. And they would say to me all the time, hey, listen, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. It's great, you should go for it, but you should also start thinking about some other things. So, luckily or unluckily, like many of you in here who have played sports, I got injured. Took me out. I had a grade 2 MCL sprain in my right knee. Happened when I was 13 years old. So I'm playing ice hockey. At that time, it was during the winter time, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, man, this sucks. I'm out. What am I going to do? Well, my parents decided to go and take me to see a doctor and go and see a physiotherapist that was able to help me get back. And I was supposed to take about 6 to 8 weeks. I got back in 4.5 weeks. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, man, 4.5 weeks after they told me 6 to 8 weeks? Hey, I'm doing not too bad. I remember thinking of talking to the physiotherapist, and she kept saying to me, hey, listen, you know what? You're really interested in this. There's a profession for this. And I said, oh, well, what is that? She goes, those people on the sideline that are in professional sports? I said, yeah. That go and help out people that get injured? Yeah. They're called athletic trainers. I was like, what the heck is that? I'm 13 years old at this point. I don't know anything like that. you're just thinking about the superstars, whoever is playing. Basketball, you're thinking about Michael Jordan. Baseball, at that time, I'm thinking about Joe Carter hitting home run. Ice hockey, I'm thinking about Wayne Gretzky. I'm not thinking about the people that are behind the scenes. But that got me thinking to myself. I was like, okay, if I can't make it as a professional athlete, I want to still be in professional athletics. So that started my journey on athletic training. From there, like I said, I'm still an athlete, right? I'm still playing ice hockey, I'm playing baseball, volleyball, track, basketball, football I played for a year as well too. And going through high school, I got pretty good at both ice hockey and baseball, so I started focusing a little bit more on that. And then I had to make a tough decision on whether I was going to play ice hockey or baseball. I figured that baseball was going to give me better opportunities, plus I had more fun playing baseball. So I was lucky enough, come down here to the US, went down to Grayson University, okay, just down the road, about 2.5 hours north of here. And I got a baseball scholarship over there. And the beauty of that is I was able to do athletic training plus do my sport. Believe it or not every place was really excited to have an athlete also do athletic training. So I was lucky that I was able to go to a school that was able to do that. And over there, it was kind of the best of both worlds for me. I was still able to pursue my passion in baseball, but I was also able to kind of look at athletic training and build that as a career as well too. So it was a fun thing. And so during that time, you're going through school, same as you guys, practice each day. Then I'd have to go home, do schoolwork, plus I'd have to do whatever responsibilities I had to do with athletic training. So things weren't always easy. I only played 3 years of baseball over there. The last year, my senior year, I decided not to play. And the reason that I decided not to play on that is because I ended up having an opportunity my senior year, my junior year going into my senior year in the summertime. I ended up working with professional athletes at that time. My sister was a soccer player, and she went to a athletic therapy plus strength and conditioning place that was helping her become a soccer player, which in the end, she became a college soccer player as well. And so my mom was talking with them and said, hey, listen, I have a son that's interested in athletic training. Would you guys be willing to do an internship with him? And they happily agreed to have me come. So in that summer, I was able to start working with professional hockey players. I wasn't doing much with them, I wasn't really allowed to do much, maybe help them out, stretch and do a few different things. But they were there, and I had an opportunity to kind of get into that world and kind of see what it was like on the other side of things, not just on the sports side of things, but see what's on the background and looking at the athletic training side. So I'm doing the internship over there, and then they also need a little bit of help doing strength conditioning. So because I was willing to spend my time doing an internship and just showing up each day and helping them out, they said, hey, listen, we need some help on the strength conditioning side. You can still do the internship, but we'll pay you to do the strength conditioning side of things. So I helped them out on the strength conditioning. So what turned into just an internship, I also was doing the strength conditioning side of things as well too. So that was something that kind of got me into that world. Going back and saying what happened my senior year over at Grayson, I didn't play because I got an opportunity, well, two things. I kind of realized that playing professional baseball probably wasn't in my cards, going from there. Second thing, I had an opportunity to work in professional hockey. American Hockey League team, a farm team to the NHL, had a team in Des Moines, Iowa. They had an athletic trainer that was begging students to come and help him out during game time because he needed help. And no one was willing to go and do it. So my professor over at Grayson University and our head athletic trainer said, hey, listen, we know that you're interested in hockey. We know that this might be a stepping stone for you professionally. Why don't you go and spend some time and go and do this opportunity? So I ran with it. So instead of focusing on my sport, I decided, hey, listen, maybe I'll put that on the back burner. We'll take some time off and let's see what happens with this. And lo and behold, that was probably one of the best decisions that I ever made. That athletic trainer, I ended up doing that full year with them. They're called the Iowa Stars at that time, over in Des Moines, American Hockey League. I worked with them for another half a year, the next year, because I came back to school and I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to go with everything. So I came back for a semester. I had a credit or two that I had to finish up. And I continued to work with him. So each home game that they had during that first semester, I was working there, you know, as well as doing my responsibilities over at Graceland that I need to accomplish. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, what's the next step? And I thought to myself, I was like, okay, I gotta think of something else. So I started applying to all kinds of different professional sports teams, because that's where I wanted to go. So the Boston Red Sox came up. And so I applied for the Boston Red Sox, and the athletic trainer that I was working for with the Iowa Stars, he had a good friend that was a physician that worked with a bunch of Boston Red Sox players. I'd never met this physician before, but because of the relationship that I had with the athletic trainer, he told me, he says, hey, listen, go and apply. And then you're gonna put this guy's name as a reference, because I think you're good at what you need to do, and I think that you can get this job if you put his name on there. So we did that. And sure enough, as luck would have it, I ended up getting an internship with Boston Red Sox. So I went through, that was the 2007 season. It was a wonderful experience. First time I got a chance to work full-time with professional athletes. Before that, I was just doing internships and then just working with people on the side, but had an opportunity to do that. And luckily enough, we ended up winning the World Series. Yeah, so I worked 1 year in professional sports, truly, and I won a World Series already. You know, people work their whole careers and never get an opportunity to do something like that.
Do y'all get reason to try to do that?
We do, but at that time, since I was an intern, they gave me something a little bit different. They
Could
gave
you
me a watch.
repeat the question, please?
He asked, do the athletic trainers and different staff members get a ring when they win a World Series? And the response is, I got a watch instead of a ring, unfortunately at that time. They engraved it, they got some diamonds on it, you know, all that fun stuff, you know, all that.
Don't lose it.
Yeah.
Don't sell it.
Seriously, it's got way too much sentimental value in order to sell that.
Good question.
But yeah, so it's one of those ones where that's kind of how that got going. When I was with Boston, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. I knew kind of from talking to other people that there's two routes that I could go during that season. During that time, I was also trying to write my certification exam, which just like any other student, you guys know, with studying tests and all that stuff, sometimes it's hard. And I ended up taking a few times to pass my certification exam. So while I was an intern with Boston Red Sox, I was still studying to get my certification to be a certified athletic trainer. So I was trying to figure out whether I wanted to continue just doing professional sports and not get my master's, or get my master's and then do professional sports. I got a pretty good deal in order to get my master's. So I ended up getting my master's over at Old Dominion University as soon as the season was done with the Boston Red Sox. And probably the only reason that I got the deal that I got for my master's, which they paid for everything, was because I was working for the Boston Red Sox at the time. And so I guess what I'm trying to show with a lot of these different experiences, and as I keep talking, there's a lot to be said for people willing to do things that other people are not willing to do. And I think we kind of get to this idea that there's always got to be something that's said for it. When I started, it wasn't always that way. I was just excited about doing something. I was excited about saying, hey, listen, we've got this opportunity. Where does it go from here? So I go to grad school, and lo and behold, I'm over in Old Dominion University, over in Norfolk, Virginia. There's a professional hockey team over there in Norfolk, and I ended up doing an internship with them as well too, because the athletic trainer that I was working with the Iowa Stars was like, why don't you help them out too? So for another 2 years, I ended up helping them out while going to school, while doing my graduate assistantship over at a high school over there. And so you can start seeing like how all these connections are starting to be built, right? Like it starts off from one thing that you said, yes, I'm willing to go and do, and then it starts just networking and building from there. Do 2 years over there. After I'm done my graduate assistantship, first thing I did, looking in professional sports, but the timing was kind of a little bit off. It was at the end of hockey season, baseball season was kind of in the middle, so I was kind of like, I need to do something. So I worked at a high school for a year. I'd already done a graduate assistantship for 2 years during my master's, had a year to do a high school job. So I was an athletic trainer there over in Northern Virginia, up in Clifton, Virginia, for a year. That did its time, and then after that, I ended up going back into professional hockey. And so from there, I worked for a number of different teams. I'm not going to go through all the experiences with them, but I'm going to start with the first team that I had. I was with the Quad City Mallards, did that for a year, team folded. So I'm having a great time. May happens, team's done, no more. Now, luckily, I'd had a little bit of experience and people would warn me that this might happen. So I was thinking in the back of my mind, okay, what's the next step? Luckily, our GM, or our president, over with the team, moved to another team in Arizona, okay, Central Hockey League. And they're called the Arizona Sundogs at the time. So they were looking for an athletic trainer. He said, why don't you come along? So I said, sure. So I got a 2-year contract with them over there. Spent 2 years in Arizona. So these two teams were part of the Central Hockey League, so it's a minor league system feeding, the NHL. In 2013, I was looking to try and build myself up, right? And I built all these connections and talking to these different people. I got an opportunity to work over with the Abbotsford Heat, okay? And it's the American Hockey League. It's the top farm club for the Calgary Flames. And so I was lucky enough to get that job over there. And that was a really interesting year for me. A guy that maybe some of you guys might know recently or heard in the news, Johnny Boudreau at that time was a rookie. I had him in rookie camp. That was my first experience. That's the only time I ever saw him, but I know that he passed away just recently. That's somebody that's famous that might be in the news that people might recognize. A bunch of other NHL players that I worked with, during training camp over there with the Calgary Flames, and then team guys that I had in the American Hockey League have matriculated and played up in the NHL. So it was a great year. But a couple things that I started noticing with myself, and this is some things that kind of shaped how I view things a little bit differently now. Professional sports, it's a wonderful thing, but it's just like anything else, it's business. And things get competitive, okay? It doesn't matter what level you're at, whether you're one of the athletes, whether you're in management, whether you're a fan, whether you're a vendor, all of those different things. The higher you go up, the more things get a little bit muddled. So I needed to go through a little bit of a learning curve. And fortunately or unfortunately, I had a boss at the time that we didn't always see eye to eye on everything. I think we both meant very well to each other, but things don't always go the way that you're gonna think. So as I'm going through, I unfortunately, at the end of the season, did something that I shouldn't have done, but I also had a health issue that caused some things that didn't work out so well. And so, lo and behold, it was one of those deals where I didn't get hired back on for the next year. And so, the first time in a long time, and I shouldn't say that, I finished out my contract, but they didn't renew it for the following year. So, the first time in a long time, I kind of had failed, at something. I'd had all these successes going back and forth, even though we had teams that would fold, even though I'd have different things, even though I didn't play baseball anymore. I kind of hit a wall a little bit. And I noticed that I was like, man, I don't know if professional sports is still what I thought it was. So I was kind of having like a little bit of a clouded view on that. And just like anything else, you have to kind of go through some of these experiences to kind of learn those different things. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, it's just you gotta go through those. After that, went out to Bakersfield, California for a year, worked for the East Coast Hockey League team there. That was part of the Edmonton Oilers organization. And then, lo and behold, I went back to Norfolk, Virginia, because their team over in Bakersfield got transferred over to Norfolk, Virginia. And so I ended up back where I went to grad school, which was awesome. And I know I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, this is great. I get an opportunity to kind of continue my career where I really enjoy living. But like always, something happens. We had a change in coaches, and they didn't renew me for the next year. They brought on some different people. So from there, I ended up coming here to Missouri Valley College. And I was kind of a little bit tired of professional sports at that time. And I know this has been kind of long-winded on kind of the way that things have gone, but I've had a lot of different experiences on those different things. And it's kind of important to tell this background in order to see where things go. So I got here to Missouri Valley College, and it was one of those ones where I'd had enough with professional sports for a little while. I've already been all over the country. I've traveled all over, and I was like, I needed a little bit of a different change of pace. So coming here, started out as an assistant athletic trainer, and eventually after a year became head athletic trainer, and I was teaching over here. So there was a lot of different things that I was able to do here that went along really well. I really enjoyed my time here. There's a lot of great things about this place. There's some things that weren't so good. But after a while, you know, thinking about getting married, and you know, my wife says to me, hey, listen, you know what? Maybe we should look at some other things. You know, just look at some other things to see if there's some other opportunities out there. And I decided, okay, so let's look back in professional sports. And so last September, I kind of started my process. I'm looking at that. And then I started with the Milwaukee Brewers. So my current job right now is the Latin American Medical Coordinator with the Milwaukee Brewers. So full swing, I'm back into professional baseball. I'm doing those different things. So it's been a long road. It's been a lot of different things, but I think it's kind of important to kind of see all those different aspects of that. And in saying all those different things, I've had the luxury of seeing a lot of the stuff that goes on behind. And I've been included in a lot of those different things. We talk about fan experience. If we just started there, you know, that's not my role. That wasn't my role in any aspect of it. But they would ask for ideas. When I was with the Quad City Mallards, they would be like, hey, listen, you know, do you have any ideas on what we should be doing, you know, here and there? I remember one of the things that I thought would be really cool is I would tell them, I'd be like, hey, listen, I know it doesn't make a lot of money, but what if we started giving out the tickets that we've got? We have all of these tickets sitting here that no one uses. What if we got them into the stadium, right? Like, what if we got these people just into the stadium? I'm not the first one to think about that, right? But then I had to learn something. Those tickets and all that, it's great. We're fine, but that's how we make money. If we don't make money off of those tickets, we can't survive as a team, which we found out later that we weren't going to survive, right? They said the only way that we make money on is tickets. We don't get any money for parking. We don't even get a full share on food and beverage, because we rent out the facility. So that was something that first kind of shocked my eyes, you know, when I'm working with the Quad City Mallards. And after that, you know, we'd go through and they'd always be saying, hey, listen, we got this fan experience and all that kind of stuff. You know, which players do you think would be available for this? I'd be like, oh, okay. Well, all these players, they want to go and do the fan experience, right? Like, they're excited to go and see the fans. Well, after you've been working and you've been playing, and let's say you just finished playing last night and now they want you to go to a school with screaming children, that might not be the first thing that they think about, you know, that next day that they're excited to go and do. So I learned pretty quick. I was like, okay, if I'm going to recommend players to go and do these different things, I better start thinking about like who might be available and who might not be available. A guy that played 20 minutes in the hockey game last night might not be ready to go and have a great experience with the fans. Yeah, so we kind of had to start thinking about who we might recommend. And so we started thinking about, hey, these guys didn't play that much, or this person's injured. Let's maybe focus on getting them out there. Then they would ask me all kinds of crazy things too. They'd be like, hey, listen, we are trying to save money. And don't get me wrong, every business that you work for, every group that you're with is going to ask the same thing. Come up with ideas where we can save money and we can maximize our profit. So they would say to me, they'd be like, hey, listen, you know what? We're spending this much on imaging. We're spending this much on doctor's appointments. We're spending this much on that aspect. Can you help us negotiate or find vendors that can help us with this? So in multiple places that I was at, I had to help out in this process. I wasn't necessarily the first person that would always go knocking on the door asking for these, but I was definitely the person that they would be like, hey, listen, we need you to come in and help when we're negotiating these deals, because we need to make sure that we are getting the proper value for what we're trying to give. And then some people would be asking too, because each place that I was at was a little bit different. Some places would pay right out, okay? They'd say, okay, we're just gonna pay for services here and there, we'll negotiate a discount. Other places were trying to do kind of like a barter system, trade things in and out, okay? Hey, we will give you these services, and in turn, we'll add advertising for you. So each place was a little bit different. And so I helped negotiate deals with, you know, supplement companies back in the day, imaging companies, hospitals. And I wasn't the main person on it, but if I wasn't a part of it, those deals probably don't get done in the end. And then we don't get the services that we need to. So from a fan experience, from a vendor experience, I had ideas on that. I looked for, you know, different experiences outside of professional sports. When I came here to Missouri Valley, there was a lot of different things that came up too. You know, we're here at a college. There's different things that we're trying to accommodate for. We have 1,100 student athletes. There's a lot of stuff that's going on here at Missouri Valley that a lot of places they don't have. So, every once in a while, people would task and say, hey, listen, you know what can you do about this? 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 And I know Professor Katz and my wife, they've gone through a lot of these different things as well too. So you have to start thinking outside the box. And one of the things that we were able to kind of think about, I wanted to make sure that we were being a little bit more responsible on the legal side of things over here at the school, because our medical documentation before I started as the head was not very good. It was not. We weren't documenting nearly as much as we should. So I wanted to come up with an idea that would help that. I wanted to come up with an idea that would help out with our insurance side of things to make sure that people actually had valid insurance. And then, if possible, I wanted to see if we could fundraise some money for the athletic training department specifically, so that we could help out the athletic trainers plus the students, and more so the students than anything else. The athletic training department was just so we could offset the budget a little bit. So luckily, I started researching into some of these different things, and I came up with a group that was willing to do that aspect, that would meet all that criteria, okay? That would meet the idea of fundraising, that would meet the idea of making us more legally satisfied, as well as making sure that people had insurance, okay? Valid insurance, checking all these different things. What that led into, just from those ideas, from the business side, it led into the school starting to look into things and saying, Okay, well, we're still having trouble with insurance. We need to get insurance for the students. So they asked me to go back to the well. We need you to research into at least international insurance. Can you do that? So I started talking to some different people and started building into that. Eventually, we did get international insurance. 4, maybe 5 years ago, that's kind of roughly around when we started with that. They also asked me, okay, you found something for international students. Now, what can you do for domestic students? So I started working on that project about 3 or 4 years ago, about getting accident insurance. And lo and behold, in speaking with some people here just recently, I found out that that has finally come to fruition. Now our students have accident insurance plus international insurance. And I'm not trying to like toot my horn. I had a bunch of help in doing this. They had just asked if I could go and take the extra step on that. And that was the same kind of in each place that I've ever been. It's not something that they're trying to say, hey, listen, it's just all on you. But we know that you work hard. We know that you have passion on what you're trying to do. And we can trust you in doing these different things. That's where we want to go with this. That's what we want to do. And so sometimes from saying something simple as, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go sacrifice my Friday night. I'm going to go sacrifice my Saturday night. You know what? Maybe I'll sacrifice my summer. You know what? Maybe I'll sacrifice my sport even. To go and see if I can do something different. To go and see if I can get something better on those aspects. It's not perfect. And these things are not anything that just kind of comes out of thin air, right? You gotta remember, I started off really young thinking to myself, what do I want to do? And I was lucky enough to think to myself, hey, listen, I want to be in professional sports. And so I started kind of looking into those things and gravitating towards those. Obviously, I read up on a lot of that stuff, I researched, and I talked to a lot of people on that. So that's kind of a little bit of my experience on these different things. And so, like, the reason that Professor Katz kind of mentioned for me to come up here is I have a unique experience in a lot of different places on seeing a lot of different things that evolve. So, what questions do you guys have for me?
Was it ever a team that you wanted to be a part of, that you either got to be a part of or didn't have to be a part of?
So, I'm a hometown fan in the NHL of the Toronto Maple Leafs, okay? I've applied to the Toronto Maple Leafs, I don't know how many times, at least 3 or 4 times I've applied to them, never said a word. Never once said a word.
Never got anything, feedback from them?
Nothing. Each time that it was there, sorry, every once in a while they would give me an email saying, sorry, we filled the position, going from there. But that was one. The Toronto Blue Jays I was always interested in, but I never really applied for anything that they had open. But you know, from any of the other teams and all that kind of stuff that I applied to, each one was more just to kind of get into professional sports. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, that was kind of the ones that kind of stung me a little bit. Yeah.
How many connections do you still maintain with people from your old organizations?
That's a wonderful question.
Would you repeat it so we all?
Yeah, so how many connections does he still maintain with people from his old organizations?
I'm not a fan of burning bridges. As best you can, I know that, you know, things happen in life, and things, you know, don't always go the way that you think, but you want to treat everybody the way that you want to be treated. And no matter how bad situations get, you want to make sure that you are still having somewhat of a civil union with individuals, because those relationships always come back. They always do.
And people will always remember the last experience or the last impression that they had with you. They always do. And good, bad, or ugly, on any of that kind of stuff, sometimes you can't control that, but sometimes you can. So I've always tried to maintain my relationships anywhere that I've been. At least with one or two individuals from that organization or that experience that I've had. Most recently, one of the ways that I got my job with the Milwaukee Brewers, when I was working with the Boston Red Sox at the time, the athletic trainer that was there, his name is Paul Buchheit. We have kept in touch ever since we worked together back then. He's now the head athletic trainer with the Philadelphia Phillies. So I asked him, before I started applying, if he would be a reference for me. And even after all these years, with us just still maintaining our relationship, he said that he would. And so he was one of those guys that was instrumental in me getting, this job over here. So I don't ever, when you're building relationships and when you're thinking about different things, it's not always just, hey, what can I do, right? It's what can we do as a group? How do we grow as a team? You never know when you're going to need that person that you had in your organization. I talk about it all the time. When I was with the Quad City Mallards, we went to a team in Bloomington, Illinois, okay? They had a professional hockey team over there. The stick kid at the time, right there, I still talk to him this day. He works with Tampa Bay Lightning right now as their head equipment manager, or their assistant equipment manager. Their athletic trainer at the time, he's the assistant athletic trainer with the Carolina Hurricanes. I still talk with him, once in a while. People that, worked at the arenas that I used to talk to, I still talk to them. People that I did my graduate assistantship for over at the high school, over in Norfolk, I still talk to a lot of my athletes from there. Even some of the staff members, if I got an opportunity to. People that I worked with at Graceland. People that I worked with at kids camp years ago. All those different things. You don't always have to be like, hey, listen, we've got to be best friends, right? You don't have to know everything about that person, right? Or you don't have to know everything about those people. But if they remember how you treated them, what the atmosphere that you created out of that, the gratitude that you showed towards those different things, they remember that. And people remember that for years going forward. So that's how those networks continue to develop. And then when you consistently do that over and over and over again, people are like, you know what? We can trust that person. Now, what I get, which is even crazier, is people will be like, they'll be looking for a job. And I'll say to somebody, especially a lot of students here at Missouri Valley, I'll be like, hey, why don't you go and look over at that place over there? And they're like, okay, I'll look at it. I said, and you know what? Just throw my name on the resume, as a reference. And sure enough, sometimes I won't even get a phone call, but because my name's on that resume, they know somebody that knows me, and they're like, hey, listen, you know what? This person has good values, has integrity, and is going to make sure that they make good decisions on doing those things. Yeah, we'll take that person on. So, yeah, I maintain relationships from 20 plus years ago. And you want to know what's even funnier than that? And this was brought to my attention most recently, and I don't think any differently from this. I've got a group of friends that I've had since I was in high school. We still talk every single day. Actually, we were all just chirping each other this morning because we're in our fantasy football group. And we still talk, and that's been 30 plus years, for a lot of us. And 3 of them were my best men, or groomsmen over my wedding this summer. So, relationships, they go a long way. And like I said, it doesn't always have to be, something that is intimate, but just, hey, you know what? We worked together over here. If you did a good job, people remember that, okay? But on the flip side, they also remember if you did a bad job, if you didn't take things seriously, if you always took the shortcut, if you caused problems, over there. People don't forget those different things. And that's a hard thing to kind of go through. I would suggest that if you ever get into that situation where you left something that wasn't so great, you know, that kind of stuff, and left a bad impression, to reach out to those people. You know, not necessarily always, hey, listen, you know, let's try and get buddy-buddy, but sometimes, you know, apologies, being humble, sometimes can repair those relationships. Just like anything in life, you can repair those things, okay? But no, it's a good question. Go ahead.
So since you got to be like around professional athletes at a pretty young age, did you find yourself like kind of hard to not be starstruck being around guys like that?
I'll tell you what, the first time when I was working, when I did my internship over in the summer back in Canada, and I'm working with professional athletes, I remember looking at those guys and thinking to myself, I'm like, oh man, like I seen this guy play on TV, you know, all year on doing these different things. The first day that I had to play catch with one of our professional baseball players that was out there, and he knew that I was a, you know, collegiate athlete in baseball, and we're playing catch because no one else could really play catch with him. You know, you start thinking about those different things. But I'll never forget, you know, something that people would always tell me too, is you need to be responsible in the way that you think about these different things. You know, being a fan and working with them is completely different things. You've got to remember that these professional athletes are just like each one of you. They're no different. They have the exact same problems. Their mom calls them every single morning.
Hey.
Right? Their parents are invested in their lives. Not everybody's parents, right? They also have the other things that go on out. They have people that want them to go out drinking every night. They want, you know, they have people asking them for money on everything. They have people that are trying to steal things from them. One of the funniest things ever, and I never thought about any of this kind of stuff, but autographs. Now things are a little bit different now, but at the time, you know, some of the professional athletes would be like, okay, if they saw somebody that wasn't a kid asking for an autograph, why are you asking for an autograph? Sure enough, those people, those fans, were selling those autographs online, and they're profiting off of their name, kind of like the NIL deals, right? Like what we got now. It was the same type of thing. So when you go back to Starstruck, I've met a lot of people, met a ton of people. Some were good experiences, some were bad, you know, just like anything else in life. But my manager with the Greenville Drive at the time, with the Boston Red Sox, was Gabe Kapler. Gabe Kapler had just finished playing baseball the year before and just came with us. I remember meeting him. I remember meeting guys like Carl Yastrzemski, which was a legend in Boston. You know, John Lester, the year that I was working with the Red Sox, was with us for a month. He ended up pitching Game 4 of the 2007 World Series to win, you know? Yes, Starstruck was in it, a thing that was, you know, there. It was very real. But they also told us, especially in Boston, they said, hey, listen, these guys are just like anybody else. Don't treat them any different. Don't sit there and ask them for all kinds of autographs and all that kind of stuff. That's not your job. That's not your responsibility, and they forbid it, really. They also told us, as well too, since I was quite young when I started, you need to be careful on who you hang out with over there. And hanging out and fraternizing with the players is not looked upon, right? Okay? As life goes on, you know, do we bend the rules a little bit? Yeah, sometimes. But you have to be careful on doing those different things, because I had many experiences where things didn't always go the way that they should have, and you know, it caused problems as well too. So yes, being starstruck was one of those different things, but you have to be really focused on what your goal was and what your job is and what that duty is.
So like based on that, like if you got that job that you wanted on the club that you're a fan, you think that it would be effective as like the other jobs? For like, for example, I'm a fan of for a team in Brazil, and if I work for my rival, I would be like more effective because like if I'm working for the team that I'm a fan, I would be like blinded or something. Like following my heart and I'm afraid.
Exactly, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because there's a, for the soccer players that are in the room that I worked with over at Missouri Valley, I used to give them a hard time. Just so you guys know, I'm not a massive soccer fan. My whole family plays soccer. My sister she went on a college scholarship to play soccer. My brother-in-law was also a college soccer player as well too. They were very good. Everybody in my family plays soccer. We watched soccer all along. At Missouri Valley here, I used to tell people all the time that soccer is not my favorite sport, which is true. It's not my favorite sport. And it comes back to what you said too. I felt I was able to be more effective in dealing with them because soccer's not my favorite thing. It's not something that I'm emotionally invested in. So I felt like I was able to kind of, push that to the side. We're in a national championship game and somebody gets injured and all that kind of stuff. I'm not thinking to myself, oh my God, we've got to win this game. I'm thinking to myself, hey, listen, we need to make sure that this person is okay. I want to make sure that this person is okay so that we can do what we need to do. And I'm glad that you brought that question up, because it's one of those things that a lot of people think, hey, we want to be fans, right? I mean, that's why we got into it in the first place. But what is your job? What is your duty? And that goes all the way up, like throughout management, all the way down to concession stands people, the janitors over there too. Yes, it's exciting to be around those things. That's why we get into it. But that's why they always give you job descriptions, right? So that you understand, hey, listen, this is my role within the company. This is what I'm responsible for. This is how, if you do this job well, we become successful, right? So, yeah, it was one of those ones where if I would have worked for somebody, let's say like the Toronto Maple Leafs, if I would have worked for them, maybe it might have been a little bit more difficult, because I might have been saying, oh man, as a fan, I really want this person to be out there, as opposed to thinking logically and saying, okay, hold on a second, does this make the most sense? Now, years of experience and all that, if I was working for a team like that, it would be different. I don't treat professional sports the same way as I did when I was in my early 20s. My idea now is, we're thinking, what is my job? That's what I need to focus on. The rest of it works itself out. Okay, go ahead, Sam.
How did you deal with moving around so frequently, like bouncing around place to place every couple of years? Was it hard?
Bouncing around every couple of years is very, very difficult. I would never, you really have to be dedicated and passionate to be willing to do that. And that's why, like, I have a lot of respect for professional athletes and anybody that's professional staff that is willing to do the exact same thing, coaches in there. It makes life really, really difficult. You sometimes forget like where you're living. You sometimes, think to yourself, hey, is this worth it? I have all kinds of people that are able to have families, be able to go on the weekends and go hang out with, their mom and dad or grandparents and doing all those different things. You end up having to make a lot of sacrifices in life. So you really have to be sure, and you really have to be motivated that that's what you want in life. And I'm not saying that, people haven't made good lives out of it. I work with a lot of people that have made really good life out of it. But it is very, very tough, because you have to make a lot of sacrifices. Right now, myself and Rena, we're going through that process right now as well too. I'm working down in the Dominican Republic right now for a good majority of the year, and she's here over in Missouri, and that's not an easy thing. And so as the years have gone on, when I was younger it was a little bit different. I was able to only consult a couple people, and talk to my parents. My parents were always like, hey, go for it. I had a girlfriend at the time as well too, and we were able to make those things work.
but that's really tough. And so, you know, with Rita and myself, with this last decision to, you know, go over to Milwaukee, work down in the Dominican Republic, that's one of the things that we talk about. Hey, does this make the most sense for us? Not, hey, is this job cool and it's something that could lead to something else? Yeah, there might be there, but does that work for both of us? Because as you get older and you're thinking about all those different things, it's important to think about that. It's important to make sure that everybody's on board, not just, hey, listen, I want to go for this and not think about anything else. Well, that's not life. And that's not a good way to look at it either. You want to bring people along on the journey. You don't want to just do it by yourself. That's no fun. You want to make sure that everybody's engaged. So yes, it's very tough. Was there a lot of fun that was involved in it? Yeah, it was great. I got a chance to see all of, well, a lot of North America, which not everybody gets an opportunity to do. You know, and I've got to see some other cool things outside of that. But yeah, no, it's definitely a really, really tough thing. And that's why it's so important that when thinking of decisions like that, where your job is going to take you all kinds of different places, you need to make sure that you think about that hard and make sure that you're comfortable with that decision.
So I want to be a GM. So like the avenue of after college, like you would recommend like the internships, or how would you recommend different paths that you could take in order to get to where I want to be?
Okay, so there's a couple questions that I have for you. You want to be a general manager in professional sports?
Oh yeah.
Any sport in particular?
No, either any of them.
Any of them.
Honest with you.
Okay. Internships are always a great way to get in the door. What are you planning on? Are you planning on doing any extra education outside of your bachelor's degree?
Yeah. So like I'm a double major right now, but I plan on going to grad school after I'm done. So I'm looking for like a grad assistant position in schools so I can finish my master's and then even maybe looking to get a doctorate.
No, and so what I would suggest, I mean, even in Milwaukee's organization, because that's the one that I'm most recently with, we have interns at every single level that we've got. I think it's a great experience. Some positions, some internships are paid, some aren't. It's what you're willing to do with those things and the time that you're willing to give up. And I will say, like, that is not an easy decision either, right? I know some of you guys outside of here also work. So you guys have your work schedule. If you're an athlete, you have that schedule, plus you gotta go to school. That's not an easy thing to kind of say, hey, listen, let's, you know, change that up. But there are some that have those avenues. The reason that I asked about outside of just your bachelor's degree on what you're looking for, sometimes now with general managers, they're looking for people that have, you know, MBAs, some of them have their law degrees, some of them have experiences at being, you know, a CFO or a CEO. Some of them have been professional athletes themselves. So making yourself visible outside of those different things, if you're gonna take an internship route, I would, you know, go full out for it. You know, if there's a certain team that you wanna work for, you're doing grad school somewhere, and you've got a graduate assistant somewhere, they've got a team, I would easily just see if you can, first of all, get double credit for it. See if you can get an internship with the group that you're looking for, and see if that can go as credit towards your graduate degree. If not, I would see if you can do that and just go from there. Now, they're not easy to get because there's only so many people that can be privy to the information that's held out there, but I would start knocking on doors. People love perseverance, a little bit of persistence.
When you found yourself in between jobs, did you do anything professional development wise, like trying to further education in your field by like taking an online course or something like that, or was it just, you know, renewing your resume and then just applying to jobs until you got something else?
That's a really good question. As an athletic trainer, we constantly have to renew or constantly do professional development things. So our continuing education, every 2 years, we're required to do 50 continuing education units. So no matter what, I'm always constantly trying to pick up new things here and there. So in between jobs, you know, there was part of that. So for instance, you know, I'd be going through and I'd be looking for a job. We'd have these conferences for the National Athletic Trainers Association over there, and we would do that once a year in June. So when I was in between jobs, I was like, okay, I need to go here because I've got connections, I've got networks here. This place too will allow me to see all kinds of different things and speak to the people that I need to speak to in doing that. So on top of that, you know, doing that, that was also a time for us to continue our education, and we'd go to all kinds of different classes there face to face. Online, I mean, I do that constantly throughout the year. In the summer times, I probably didn't do as much in the summer because I knew I was going to go to the conference and do that live. But then as well, during the year, I would continue to do those things. But that doesn't mean that I didn't continually build on different things. So in my time in between jobs, I had all kinds of different jobs that I would end up doing. I ended up trying to supplement my time by being a landscaper. I worked for a moving company. One of my sister's best friends, her husband, I ended up installing solar panels one summer. I coached baseball because I was asked to do that, volunteer. I worked, you know, for hockey camps because I was asked to be an instructor, you know, in ice hockey. There was all kinds of different things that I did, which surprisingly, you know, all of those different experiences also helped me think about things a little bit differently as well. You know, it was good and a humbling experience as well too, to remind yourself, you know what, you need to continue to think about these different things. You don't know where the next job was going to go. Sometimes in between jobs, I wasn't sure that I was going to get the next job. I wasn't sure that I was going to get another professional sports job. I wasn't sure that I was going to get a college job. I wasn't sure about any of those different things. So I kept thinking to myself, okay, let's do these experiences because people need help here. But is this something that you want to continue to do? And it was always a good reminder to myself. I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't what I want to do all the time. So I need to continue to develop myself, put myself out there, network so I can get the job that I would like. That's what I stand for.
When you said imaging, what did you mean by that?
When I said
Imaging?
okay. So when I'm talking about imaging itself, we're talking about MRIs, CT scans, X-rays, ultrasounds.
Okay. It's within the athletic training part.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's from that standpoint, so that a lot of times what ends up being a big cost or something that can be offset is the imaging itself.
Of the cost of this.
Yeah, and the cost of those.
Because now basically you're in more management, you really don't see injuries as much, do you?
No, and that's a great question as well too. So I didn't speak too much on my current role. So my current role as a Latin American medical coordinator, I've got 2 assistant athletic trainers plus an associate that work under me, and then I also have a physiotherapist that we kind of work together on dealing with all the injuries. So my day-to-day is a little bit different. The 2 assistants that I have, they work with both the Dominican Summer League teams that we have in Milwaukee. So they're each responsible for a team, and our associate also helps out with that. Our physical therapist deals with all our long-term rehab. So my role is basically overseeing all of this process, you know, coordinating medical care, being consulted when we have issues that arise. We've got an injury that people are looking at things and they're like, well, I'm not so sure about this. They come and talk to me about it, and we say, okay, do we look at this? Do we look at this aspect? And then it kind of leads into, you know, what Professor Katz was just talking about, making connections within the community. Okay, and I'm going to tell you this as well too, that it makes it very, very tough. Spanish is not my first language. Okay, I spoke English my whole entire life. I know some French. I'm learning Japanese for the past 4 or 5 years. And I've known Spanish for a little while, but I haven't really focused on it as much. So currently I am continuing to learn Spanish every single day. I go to Spanish classes every week, sometimes twice a week. So then I also have to go into the community over in the Dominican. And yes, I have help. I have help with this. We've got people that help translate for me, going back and forth. But sometimes, you know, it's on you to kind of start making these relationships and start looking at these things and start reaching out. So I've had to kind of look for different places to help us out with imaging, like I just mentioned, in the Dominican. We just moved to a new area in the past year. So they had connections previous years because we were in a place called San Pedro. Now we moved to a place called San Isidoro. They don't have the same connections that they used to. The places are about an hour apart from each other. So in doing that, I've had to make different connections. We still have our team doc and we've got different things here and there, but things don't always work the way they should. The hospital system is a little bit different over there, and as you can imagine, in a professional sports organization, imaging comes up because it's a very important thing. Anybody that we have that's new that comes into the organization is required to get this imaging, so it becomes a big deal. So if we have snags, or a hang up on things where we don't get this imaging done at a correct time, that prolongs the process of us being able to get this person out onto the field so they can actually start playing. So part of my job is coordinating all of that, coordinating that care, building those relationships and saying, okay, we have this process in place right now. This is what I came into. Does this make the most sense? I have to sit back and I gotta start talking to other people. Hey, this organization, what do you guys do? Who do you guys use? Oh, we have organizations that come up, like every week I have somebody new that's saying, hey, listen, we've got this lab over here, we've got these services over here, we've got this over here. Could you guys use this help? And I have to kind of go back through and do a little bit of research on this, go and do different things. Like a couple weeks ago before I came here, there's a new hospital or urgent care facility that was just built, and they wanted us to start using them. So they asked us to come in for a tour. So I went through a tour. They were gracious enough to speak English for me, and we went back and forth on different things. I thought it was such a good opportunity that I brought my boss in when he was in town, and we took a look at that, and we started that relationship with them as well too, because it made more sense. It made life easier for people. It also made things a little bit better. So, on doing all those different things, from a management standpoint, you gotta look at things a little bit differently. And then also on a management standpoint, you have personalities that you end up having to deal with, right? So as soon as you become a leader, right, within your organization, you're gonna have people that work under you. Now, luckily, I'd already had lots of experience with that, a little bit when I was in professional sports, but a lot when I was here over at Missouri Valley College. So I kind of had ideas already what it was like on working with different people and helping to delegate tasks and do all those different things. But it's still not easy. You gotta spend a lot of time, and sometimes you have to spend hours on end. There are times where, and I was used to this before, where if you're making a deal, it's not always a deal or a negotiation that happens just in a day. Sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes a couple of months. There's a lot that goes into that. And then on top of that too, my position, somebody gets surgery, it's my responsibility to be there for that athlete, see them through the whole process, over the hospital, bring them back to the complex, and deal with what we need to over there. So yeah, there's a lot to that.
So we come to it from this school for more of the management side, not from your other prior education. So now you're in basically more in management now, as much as, or how's your time split?
So it's a little bit of both. I still get a chance to work with the athletes daily, but not at the same rate that I had over here. Over here at Missouri Valley College, we had 1,100 student athletes. For some of you guys remember where I would say, hey, listen, you need to email me just to come and see me, because we had so many people there, right? So I was used to doing treatments daily and doing all those things. If we were to talk about a split, I would say that working from a rehab standpoint, I'm probably about 25% of my job doing that. coverage for, you know, the games and all that stuff, and practices, probably looking at something like 10%. And then, you know, the rest of it is pretty much, the last 65% is mainly just kind of managing people, sitting in on phone calls, going to meetings, you know, developing relationships throughout the community. Another big thing that they ask me to do is thinking the big picture items. You know, what's our emergency action plan look like? What happens when this goes wrong? Who are we gonna hire? Are we gonna keep the people that we currently have? You know, what are your plans for the future on how we can make this better? How do you collaborate with other groups within our organization? The beauty of my current job is that some of the things, if we compare it to what we have here at Missouri Valley College, there's so many people, we can only focus on a small thing. With Milwaukee, we have so many athletes. We're only allowed to have, you know, about 70 to 80 over at the complex, but we have a staff of 3 athletic trainers, plus a physical therapist, plus we have 5 strength conditioning specialists that we've got. We also have access to 10 or so coaches. We've got video coaches as well. We have access to biomechanics within Arizona. We have access to nutritionists. We have access to all kinds of different health professionals within the Dominican. So there's a lot more coordination and a lot more collaboration. So yes, on that side of things, I'm more on the management side of things, and, you know, dealing with those things.
When you make your connections, are you usually the one that has to keep them going, and are you offended, or that's just part of life? Folks, that's just part of life, would you agree? Would you expound on that a little bit?
Yep. Relationships are just like anything else, it takes work. It's not something that just comes easy. Sometimes it does, but that's generally not the way things go. Everybody here in life has different difficulties, right? And they've got different things going on. I've had to go out of my way to continue developing some of those relationships and continuing to build on those relationships that I started years ago. It can't be just one of those things where you're just like, hey, I'm not gonna put any time into it. You know, for all of you in here that have significant others, you know, you guys might be starting to realize that, you know what, I need to spend some time building that relationship in order for it to grow. If I don't put any effort into it, that doesn't grow. Well, this is the same thing with networking, right? It's the same thing. It doesn't always mean that you have to be constantly texting every single person that you know, because as people know too, that's a little bit too much as well, right? Some of the people that I knew 20 years ago, I don't always keep in contact with those people. Sometimes we lose touch, but that doesn't mean that I lost touch with everybody. You have to continue to kind of go out there. If you go to a conference and you see those people, go back, reintroduce yourself, right? Or just go back and see how they're doing. Every once in a while, you got them on Facebook, you got them on LinkedIn, you got them on Instagram, you got them on Snapchat, you got them on whatever other social media aspect. Doesn't hurt to, you know, send a message. Doesn't hurt to like something that they've got up there. You know, sometimes that starts a conversation. If you want to get crazy every once in a while, give a person a phone call. Especially if you really valued that relationship, especially if you were close, give that person a phone call. Sometimes it's like a 5-minute conversation, sometimes it's a 10-minute conversation. You know? And don't ever, like, on the flip side, as you start developing those relationships and you network, and people start coming to you and asking about different things, don't push those people to the side. They were just like you as well too. They're just as important. I have all kinds of students, people that I met years ago, young professionals that still reach out to me. I always try and take my time to, you know, talk with them and help them out whatever way you can. But you do have to make an effort on that. Sometimes it takes a little bit of sacrifice in order to do those things, but I think it's important. You know, Rena has come to some of the conferences that I've been to, especially with the athletic training, and she's seen like how sometimes that's how things develop. You know, I have people from years ago, all kinds of things, people I taught that will still come up and, you know, talk about different things. So you have to continue building those.
And sometimes you continue more than somebody comes to you, and that's just the way it is,
Right.
so.
Yeah, and don't be, you know, always be mindful on how you approach people and, you know, what you say on doing
Good.
things, but make sure that you, you know, just make sure that you do the best you can with that.
Any other questions? I appreciate you coming in, huh? Thank you.
Thank you.